Good evening and welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. Now, as you can see, I am in red. We've got the hats in the corner. It's all about relationships today because, of course, it's Valentine tomorrow. And guess who's here to have this conversation about relationships with me? I've got Nairy McMahon, and I'm just going to welcome her to the show. Hello, Nairy.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm really excited.
Thank you
Thank
so much. Welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary.
Yeah,
It's great to have you. Now, on this show, we are here to be awesome and wholesome together, to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And we already have some people joining us. We're going to have a few people joining us today, hopefully. Now, Nari, tell me, how have you been? How have you been? There's been COVID for over 2 years now.
um,
How has that affected your work life? How has that affected business? Let us hear from you.
great. Hey, thank you for firstly, thank you so much for the invitation and also for welcoming me to your community. It
Thank you.
has been a crazy 2.5 years, and I could tell you what has kept me going is the relationships that I have in the community of Earth practitioners. Honestly, we have kind of banded together. When I mean ORSC, I mean organizational relationship systems coaches. The community that I belong to, they've really banded together. Community in the street, community in the US.
Yeah.
Um, it's and the participants that keep coming in. As you know, I run a training company. Just to give you an idea, we had a 2-day course 2 days ago. 3 days ago it finished.
Okay.
We had 17 strangers arrived from all over the place around the world. They didn't know each other, and at the end of it, they were family. They,
Wow.
yeah,
And I'm not surprised. After all, it's a relationship program. So I'm
it
not at
is.
all surprised at all. And thank you for matching up with me in red as well. Thank you so much for the effort. Now, Nari is the director for CRR UK. CRR UK, it's all about organization and relationship systems coaching, the USC exclusive provider. Now, you will hear more about that later. But today we are here to talk about how to nurture relationships. I mean, it is Valentine's Day tomorrow. And usually we know that when people talk about Valentine, it is usually about LOVE, it's all about matters of the heart. But today we will be talking about matters of the heart, as well, because it is important. But we want to have a conversation on a very general, from a very general perspective, both from a personal and a professional perspective. And I think this is particularly important now that we're working remotely, that we have gone through all that we have all experienced collectively with the pandemic. I think now more than ever, we need stronger relationships, both in our personal and professional lives. And that is why you're here today to, have that conversation with us. We have quite a few people joining us right now. We stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. I've got Ronke here. Hello, Ronke. How are you? We have another Facebook user also joining us, and we are also on LinkedIn as well. So let me introduce you, Nari, to our audience. I've got your bio, so I'm just going to introduce you properly to our audience.
Thank you.
Nari brings focus on strengthening relationships to optimize team performance with a focus on alignment during transformational change. Having engaged with small businesses, major corporations, and the banking sector, she has built expertise in deal structuring, risk and credit assessment, negotiation, consultative selling, and business relationship management. She adds tangible value to the people's side of the business, providing hands-on support to sales and relationship teams by aligning business initiatives with sales and relationship goals. Her aim is to build better, stronger enterprises. Originally a psychologist by training, and today a director with CRR UK and an OSC systemic facilitator, coach, and trainer. Born and raised in Ethiopia, before moving to Australia for the start of her career. She has personal cross cultural experience and a truly global perspective on the human condition. Nari is a member of various coaching groups and is a mentor for women in senior positions. Nari, that is an impressive bio. You are welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Great to be here.
Thank you. So now, Nari, tell me, how would you define a relationship?
Wow. Do you know, I'm going to go because I am an Earth practitioner. So I'm going to define it the way we define it. So
Mm-hmm.
relationships are a group of people or individuals who have some interconnection or interdependency with a common goal. So that kind of goes across romantic couples or personal couples all the way to teams. Because if you're interconnected or interdependent and have a common goal, that's a relationship for us.
It is. It is a relationship indeed. That's a fantastic. I like the way you answer that. That we have a common goal, and that we are interdependent. And of course, as humans, we need each other, don't we? Be it in our personal lives or in our professional lives. And I think that just sort of edges me into my second question to say, what exactly do we mean when we say humans are social species?
Well, I mean, this debate started a long time ago with Aristotle, didn't it? I mean, you can Google it and it'll show you. You can research it on the web, and it'll tell you that it was defined a long time ago, and psychologists and sociologists have confirmed it. But just even what we went through the last 2.5 years with COVID, I mean, how much did we miss our contacts? How desperate were we to be together? So human beings do need to be with each other. We validate our thoughts. We validate our emotions. We learn from seeing and watching each other. We don't only learn from reading books. I mean, yeah, we need to be together to see each other. We exercise together. We eat together. We walk in the park together.
Yes, we do. We do.
We
And
do.
Ronke here is just, in alignment with you, interconnected and interdependent with a common goal. Absolutely, Ronke. And I also like you said, Nari, that this COVID, the pandemic time, the period we went through this horrible pandemic, especially at the height of it, where we were isolated, I think we came to a point where we really started to value the relationships, the opportunities to be together that was, so easily took for granted, don't you think?
Absolutely. And Mary, remember all the wonderful things that we saw musicians across the world playing together. That scene in an Italian village where all the neighbors got up and sang together, ping pong playing from one balcony to the other. I
Absolutely.
mean, yeah.
Absolutely. We really did, that was one of the benefits of COVID, if you like. It really opened our eyes to the simple things of life, to the things that really do matter. Love,
Love.
relationship, networking, and all of that. Things we
Yeah.
took for granted, essentially. So now, Nari,
Mhm.
why are relationships vital to our happiness and well-being? In a way, I think you've touched on it in the last question, but can you tell us more? Why are relationships vital to our happiness and well-being?
Well, again, because we've all shared this very real lived experience of knowing that mental health, the crisis that we are facing right now with mental health issues,
Mm,
loneliness, all
mm,
that because we were separated. And when we are together, we are a lot more, well, we thrive more. We see each
mm,
other a smile in the street. If nobody's looking at you, if you've got no interconnections at all with nobody, um, I think it's detrimental to our well-being. Well, it is. I mean, it's been a terrible experiment, a terrible thing that's gone through. We have been connected, thank goodness for technology, but you could see the impact it's had all the way from children to teenagers to young adults to us at the, much more grown up.
mm.
It's definitely a lot of things. It's brought a lot of things in light, exactly what someone just wrote.
Absolutely. And together is always better, as Yemi is saying there. As you can see, our audience, they tend to engage with the conversation, which is a good thing. Yeah, absolutely. It is important to our well being. It is important to our happiness because, I mean, one of the things I think I remember saying on one of my podcasts during the height of COVID is the fact that for some people, going to the office was perhaps the highlight of their day.
Mm.
For people who perhaps live alone, you know, going to the office, seeing people in the office, talking to people in the office, going to lunch together was perhaps the highlight of their day. So to suddenly have that shift of being stuck at home, especially at the height of COVID, where we couldn't even go anywhere except to maybe quickly pop out and, do your shopping and come back. I mean, that must have had some serious, impact on a lot of people's mental health, definitely.
Yeah, it caused a lot of stress. And you know what you
Yeah.
just described as well. Families who've tolerated each other and
Yeah.
had the office to go to.
Hmm.
When they didn't have that, it was a lot of crunch time, really investigating how unhappy they were in relationships. So there were
Hmm.
those who were unhappy because they weren't in relationship. There were those who became very aware of how unhappy they were in relationship. And there were those other ones who thrived. All of a sudden, we know of so many couples who started a business together.
Hmm.
So families who bonded together and came up with ideas. So relationships do matter. And what I also want to say is, work gives you meaning, it gives you
Hmm.
purpose. As
Yeah.
you said, the actual traveling, we all complained collectively
Yeah.
about the travel to the office. We all complained about the busyness, but we were collectively complaining. But when you're in isolation, you have no one to sort of complain, to bond with. You're on your own with your own thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you said there is quite profound. You said during the pandemic, some people went to the office, and because it was a daily routine for them to go to the office, they didn't quite notice they were in a bad relationship until they had to spend every hour, every minute, every second together with whoever they're in a relationship with. And
Mm,
for others, it brought them closer together. I mean, that's just the dynamics of human beings, isn't it?
mm,
For others, it brought them together. How interesting that is. But however, we all still need each other one way or the other, okay, whether
yeah.
it's in our personal lives or in our professional lives. And we have more comments here. I like to carry our audience along. Good conversation about being at home and being in the office. Absolutely. Lento, nice to have you here. Um, I have another question for you. Um, I think you've touched on this. What happens when we don't have them? I think you've sort of, touched on that. What does a healthy relationship look like? What should we be looking out for in a healthy relationship?
The work that we do is based on the Gottman's Institute's research. That they have done over 30 years of research on healthy relationships. Really investigated couples when they came into what they called the love lab. They observed them and measured their physiological reaction to each other. Very few simple things. Here's the thing. They found that this is the percentage they used. 69% of things that you don't like about your partner or you don't like about a team member is never going to change. That 69%
I,
is
I
what
wish I knew that 30 years ago.
it is a perpetual problem,
Yeah.
which means that that's just the way, that's what is carried. You need to,
Hmm.
successful relationships are the ones that navigated skillfully with those problems that were never fixable. That's the first thing. The second thing is positivity ratio. So healthy relationships have a huge bank account of positivity. The kind of ratio is for every one negative comment, you should have 5 positive comments already in the bank. So it's not that you do a negative and then you add the 5 in. It's you need to have 5 and then you withdraw 1. That's how it's going to work. And positivity doesn't mean, fake positivity. Positivity means looking at someone's in the eyes, say hello, welcome, open the door, acknowledge them when they're having a coffee, have a little laughter. All those things are positivity. And they say during periods of stress, that ratio is 20-1. And other things that you notice successful relationships do, they have healthy conflict. They recognize that conflict happens. It is how we sometimes process. That's how creativity comes. But they don't go into toxic communication. They don't do blaming and defending and stonewalling and dragging things out from the past. They have a healthy relationship with conflict. Know that it's part of it. And they really reduce, as I said, during periods of conflict, the negativity, and recognize when we are sort of full up. If your emotions are up, either with anger or with emotions, you're not going to listen. So those healthy relationships gave each other space to kind of calm down.
Love Lab, and you talked about 69% of what you don't like about your partner will never ever change.
Nope.
So, I mean, that brings us back to the fact that we can't change people anyway. But I hope our audience, I hope you're listening, because this is all about nurturing relationships, and the figures she's just given here, they are very, very important for what we're talking about here today. We want people to have great relationships, be it in their personal lives, be it in their professional lives. 69% of what you don't like about your partner will never change. So for me, that falls in the category of wicked problems or wicked issues. So there's no point trying to expend your energy or your resources trying to change those things. It will never change. And perhaps this is what we mean by the red flags, but I'll come back to the red flags later. Now, talking about positivity, you said for every for every negative comment,
Mm-hmm.
be sure to have 5 positive comments. I hope we're taking that away, right? Be sure to have 5 positive comments. So make sure you're tracking it. Don't come up with one negative comment and then another and then another. You're going to cause third world war, okay? And healthy conflict. I mean, conflict is not always a bad thing. But
Yeah.
when you say healthy conflict, can you expand on that, please?
So one of the things we need to be aware of is that we are in a constant state of change. I mean, in relationship, we talk about that's what happens at work, but actually it happens in life. We're always in a state of change. Sometimes we don't notice the change. And the reason why we have conflict is because something has changed and it ain't working and it's trying to get our attentions. We do it really clumsily. But if we think, wow, conflict is just a way of saying things are not working out, what do we need to do? It kind of puts instead of reacting to conflict, you're kind of thinking, okay, we're not getting along. Something's not right. We just need to sit down and have a conversation and figure out what it is, rather than saying, well, it's you. No, it's you. No, it's you. You're always like this. And no, you're always like this.
Here you go again.
Here you go again. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Rolling the eyes,
Yeah. Exactly.
rolling the eyes. So when there's conflict, we need to not react, but respond. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in. This is where our own self awareness and self management comes in. But it takes practice, right? It does take practice to get into that way of responding as opposed to reacting. But if we are conscious about it and if we're intentional about, having productive conflict, if you like, then I think it is doable. It is doable.
Yeah. And Mary, can I just underline something? What you said,
Yes.
conscious and intentional. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. In all relationships, we need to be conscious and intentional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, what are the signs of a relationship in decline? Because it is just as important to be able to spot that things are going south.
Yeah. When you are constantly arguing, there's a lot of blaming and defensiveness, what we call toxic communication. When there is a lot of those communications, because they come in pairs. So if you're a defender, then somebody else is a blamer. If someone's a blamer, a defender. If you're a stonewaller because you remove yourself, or you do the eye rolling, these are all signals that the relationship is communicating very unskillfully for what they want.
Hmm.
And if you have a diet of toxic communication, it really deteriorates. People, we talk about, people don't leave organizations, they leave people. It's the same thing. And you'll find that a diet of stress, no joy, constant blaming, finger pointing, you just feel exhausted and you just leave. It's the same thing that happens. These are the indicators.
Hmm.
And remember, relationships change. So some of those things do happen. I mean, we were all young and wonderful and having a good time. Then we have a family and our responsibilities and roles change, but we haven't done it consciously. 1 minute we were not parents, next minute it feels like next minute you're a parent, or 1 minute one of you was working, the other one was studying, and then you're both working. So relationships are in a constant state of emergence and roles are constantly changing. So if we don't do it consciously, we end up bickering on hoping for something that has shifted, wishing that things were the way they were, not recognizing that we are changing all the time. Our relationship is changing all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm happy you emphasized on consciousness and being intentional, because there's something very significant you just touched on right now. You talked about how things change, and whether we like it or not, change is the only constant. So let's get into the personal space for a moment now. Um, Young couple, they
Mm.
get married. It's just the two of them. They have a routine. They go to the movies. They go eating out. They're traveling all over the place. And then they start having a family. Big change, right? Big change. But if, like you said, they do not take the time to say, what does this change mean for us? Now, let's even go back a few more steps. Let's go back to even before the marriage, if you like, or before the relationship, or before the living together. What I find rather interesting, and I did bring this up in our podcast last year, the Valentine podcast, is this. We go into a car showroom to buy a car, you have a contract,
Mm.
or to lease a car, you have a very, very comprehensive contract. Or you want to rent accommodation, you have these pages of contract. If this damages, you do this. If this happens, this is what happens. This is your responsibility and all of that. But when it comes to matters of the heart, when it comes to, marriage, relationship, taking vows, for better, for worse, that's it, for better or for worse.
Mm.
What is for better? What is for worse? Do you see?
Yeah.
And we just go in, for better, for worse. We just go in. No intentional, perhaps some people do this, perhaps some people do, but a lot of us don't. I certainly didn't. And things start to fall apart because you were never intentional about how this relationship is supposed to work. Now, if we come back into our organizations, we design a team alliance, for crying out loud. And these are not necessarily people we're going to be spending the rest of our lives with, but the ones we take a vow to spend the rest of our lives with, we have no team alliance designed. What do you say to that, Nari?
I think it's crucial that we all do. We call it designing the relationship alliance. Exactly what you said. It is crazy that we don't do it. We fall in love, we get so excited, we just go into some sort of a fantasy.
Yeah.
But the reality is relationships need work, whether it's at work or at home. We need to I love these. Sometimes someone mentioned, I think a couple of times, around compromise. And I just want to say, sometimes when we do compromise, we feel a little bit hurt. Why we say designing a relationship alliance is because when you compromise, you feel like you've given something up. But if you're aligned on your big goal, and it means for now you don't get what you want, it kind of makes it a little bit okay for now, because
Hmm.
you're not compromising what you really want. What you're saying is, actually, we're aligned to get our goal, And for now, I'm going to let go of what I want. And
Mm.
that is such a beautiful statement that whoever it was who wrote this, sometimes you
Mm.
need to compromise,
Yeah.
brought it. And it's has, as you said, as teams, aligning on the goal, aligning who's going to be doing what, aligning how you're going to pay for bills, aligning who's going to take the rubbish, aligning who's going to be doing the grocery shopping. You're right. We just take it for granted.
We do take it for granted, and
Mm,
it can become a huge problem when
mm.
the responsibilities seem to tilt too much to one side. It can become a problem. Now Grace is saying here, when there is no emotional connection. Now, even when there is an emotional connection, like Nari said earlier on, things change. Problems you didn't have 10 years ago, you have them today. A man that was doing well 10 years ago may have lost his job. You may have, started a new career which you didn't have 10 years ago, which changes the whole dynamics of that relationship. So what do you say to emotional connection, Nari?
Exactly what you just said. And if there is no emotional connection, we just want to normalize that all relationships don't last 100 years. Some of
Yeah.
them are there just for 10 years. Some of
Yeah.
them, so there is a natural arc in relationships. What we do keep doing as ORS practitioners is keep rejuvenating those. As Mary said, if you've got a designed relationship alliance, because you have to review it all the time, you can have conversations, difficult conversations around this, so that either you put something in to create some sort of an emotional connection,
Mm.
or decide that actually there is no emotional connection. And that's important.
Yeah.
For some people, marriage still works without that, or relationships still work without that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Ronke here says people change when they see the benefit to them of changing a behavior. Change has to come from within and not imposed or guilt tripping. Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
totally agree with that. Excuse me. Do it consciously. Absolutely. That's what Nari also is saying. Review is important. Absolutely. And for those of you here today watching, for me, that is just my gift to you, to be honest. Relationship alliance. And it is never too late to have a relationship alliance. Just like within organizations, we have a team alliance. It is not cast in stone. From time to time, we will revisit that alliance to say, is it still serving us?
Yeah.
What has changed? What do we need to add or take away from it? And the same should go for relationships, for matters of the heart. And like you said, you call it a natural arc, right? So which means we need to keep working at it, right? So
Yep.
when you say natural arc, what are the things that happens along the arc?
Well, you just described, changes. Sometimes
Okay.
we start working together, or going to work together as a
Mm-hmm.
couple,
Yeah.
and then, as you said, one of us wants to change the job, or one of us, the company they're not working there anymore. Some of
Mm.
us want to be self-employed. That is a natural change in the relationship. You need to re-establish all the
Mm.
rules, alignment, well, all the
Mm-hmm.
rules of engagement,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
you can reconnect.
Absolutely. Revisit the rules of engagement. That is so important because things are constantly changing.
Most
Fantastic. I hope
certainly.
our audience, I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you have your pen and paper there because we really need you to be in healthy relationships. We really need you to. Now, does a healthy relationship in our private life determines or influences our successes in our professional and business lives?
Well, I mean, of course, I'm going to say yes. I mean, gosh.
Yes. Yes.
And it could do both. Sometimes we can have fantastic careers,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful at work, and come back and be someone else in
Hmm.
relationship. And vice versa. We can be miserable at work, but really happy at home. So relationships are not always the same. And it's what we put in, Mary. It's what
Hmm.
we put in and what we take out, and who we're in relationship with. I mean, the roles we're playing. Maybe at work, you're an important person, you've got lots of respect, you've got a team, you talk about football, whatever it is, there's the connection. At home, you've got lots of family members, you're not connected with them, nobody likes the football, you feel a bit marginalized, and so there is no connection. I do think, though, that if you're conscious and intentional in all your relationships, I think you would be having a successful, both professional and private life relationships.
It
And you
always
know,
comes back to being intentional about it, isn't it?
it is. Yep, it is. It is. And to think that it's like when you're great at work, it's because you're investing in the team. It's not just about you, it's about the team. And at home, it's exactly the same. It's not just about you, it's the relationship. It's who you are as a family, it's who you are as a couple, it's who you are as, I don't know, people who live together.
Hmm. It depends on well, how much of importance we attach to family life. Also, I think it can also be coming from a point of our value system as well.
Mm,
Some people are able to balance it, give as much attention at work and same at home. But like you said, what if the man likes football, the woman doesn't like football? Someone talked about compromising earlier on. Well, I guess you might just have to pretend that you like football, right? and just bear torture for, is it how long do they play football for now? 90 minutes or 2 hours, something like that.
But Mary, you know what? You can also be really honest and say exactly that. There's so many things we like doing with each other. And on Saturday afternoons, I'm not going to spend that time with you,
Yeah,
whichever way it is. And
yeah,
maybe that Saturday afternoon is where you go and do something else. I mean,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Okay, now talking about relationships, you talked about going to do something else. And I think that is also important. In as much as we are in relationships, we are codependent sometimes, or we are interdependent, we need each other. It brings a lot of life into our mental health and our health. It is also important that we cherish our own moments. It's also important that we have things we do on our own, because if we are too codependent on people, then we might be setting ourselves up for failure, right?
yeah, for sure. Relationships need other relationships.
I like
Relationships are
that.
not an island on their own. We all need to have our own. As individuals, we are constantly in relationship with multiple of relationships. We're not just in relationship with one thing.
Mm,
We're in relationships with humans. We're in
yeah,
relationships with the environment. We're in relationship with what our hobbies are. These are all. We're always in relation to something. We're always relating to something. Um, yeah, we do this string exercise in the first ORSC training, but we now obviously do it on a Jamboard. But you just see how interconnected you are, not just the person that you're together with, but
hmm,
all the other things you're interconnected with.
right.
Yeah,
There are good times and bad times in a relationship. It's how we connect and deal with it that matters. Absolutely. And like Nari said, we need to be intentional about it. Um, Someone says it's such a shame that I can't see your names. It's a team game. Absolutely. It is a team game, and we need to be intentional about the rules of engagement.
absolutely.
It seems we put a lot of effort into our alliances in a business environment and in our work context, but in when it comes to our personal lives, it seems we mostly take it for granted. Being too codependent could cause more friction by having unrealistic expectations from our significant other. That is a good one, and I have a question for Nari around expectation and agreement very, very shortly. Thank you very much for that, Bemisola. I haven't seen you for a while, by the way. Um, okay, what other questions do I have for you here? Hmm. Okay, you've answered that. And I think the men do better at having other things to do than the women. It was this one here. Yes. How can no, 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 no. Sorry, I'm trying to go back to what I asked earlier about how we should have something doing outside of our relationship. But however, let me go back to this other question. Um, how can we be smart in matters of the heart? What tips can you share?
Well, why don't I go back to a comment that was made before? I think there is huge
What?
expectations that all relationships look the same. And
Okay.
here's something that we hold as a philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
as a principle for us, which is that each relationship has its own unique identity, which means that the relationship that you're in might
Mm-hmm.
not look like all the relationships around you. That's
Mm-hmm.
because it's unique in its own way.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than comparing, maybe, because I guess one tip that I would say, rather than comparing how it is how it is with a friend of yours or someone else, or how it was with your parents, to see the merits of the relationship that you're in right now. What is
Right.
unique about it? What is special about it? What needs to change? Because sometimes we complain or we compare because that's an unskillful way of saying, actually, I'm not really happy. Some
Yeah.
things need to change. So instead of saying, I need this to be different, what we
Mm-hmm.
say is, well, I don't know, Mary and her relationship, they always seem to do that kind of stuff. So we use a third party to express something that we're not happy with. So
Hmm.
I guess going back to the two things is, one is really own up what it is in relationships that don't make you happy. And also remember, it's every relationship has its own unique identity. It's just not the same.
Absolutely. So we really need to be smart about it. Every relationship is different, and we need to be skillful in addressing the things we're not happy about within that relationship. Very, very skillful about it. Okay. Someone, I think it was Gbemi, said something about expectations, and I think that is extremely important, and perhaps is also one of the ways we can manage relationships both in our professional and personal lives. How can we leverage expectations and agreement in our personal and professional relationships? Because
By
this
what
can be a problem.
Yeah, by exactly what you said, designing your relationship alliance. Because
Mm,
if you don't do that, and you're right, there has been so many relationships that have broken down because one person has a higher expectation on the other person than on themselves. Honestly, it's I think one of the easiest tools you can use is called the Designing Relationship Alliance. As you know, you can do that in the Team Alliance. It's 3 or 4 questions, but it is such a complex conversation, because you actually have to own what you want. You want to own how you want things done. You want to get aligned on the expectations for the reason why. Like, why is there this expectation? How can both of you support to deliver on that expectation instead of the one person? And you may need to adjust the expectation. Maybe it's unrealistic expectations. The Design Relationship Alliance looks very simple, but it is a fundamental skills. Well, it's a skill set, and it's behavioral, because then you
hmm
commit to what you're going to do. It's not just words. You commit to what you want to do. I have to say that we did this with our daughter when she was very young, and I know that she still uses it. She calls it something else. I don't think we ever said to her it was designing a relationship alliance. But kids also love it, because then they contribute the kind of behaviors that they want, what happens when they get into conflict, how to as a family thrive. All those things are important things to consider.
Mm. And I'm happy you talked about, your daughter, because when we talk about relationships, it's not just about, the work environment, or when we talk about relationships in our personal lives, it's not just, about matters of the heart. It could be father-son relationship. It could be mother-daughter relationship. It could be
So,
mother-son relationship. Again, it comes back to being very, very intentional about how we want to relate in our relationships. And this relationship alliance you're talking about, I really hope our audience are taking note of that. And we're going to share your website very shortly anyway. It's never too late to revisit or to start. It's going to look awkward, I'm sure, for anyone in the relationship to suddenly walk up to their wife or husband and say, I've just been on Sincerely Agile with Mary. No, I want a relationship alliance. Of course, I'm just joking about that. But it might seem odd, but I'm sure there are creative ways we can slip that in if we never did it before. So what would your advice be for someone who leaves this show today and goes, I think I want a relationship alliance? How do they go about it?
here's a tip. This is what you can do. Say you're about to go for a walk, and you can say something like, I'm so looking forward to going for a walk, but I just want you to know that there is something on my mind, and I'm going to have a conversation with you about it. And instead of just blurting it out, I just want to know if it's okay for me to do this while we're going for a walk. And maybe we'll start when, I don't know, in 10 minutes or something. So you're preparing the relationship and you've set some ground rules. And then the partner is the right to say, actually, I've had a really busy day. Is there can we do it on the way back, or can we do it differently? So can you see how every opportunity is? Tonight I'm really tired, and I won't be able to clear up the table. Is it okay if you do it tonight? Because because I do it all the time and I'm sick and tired of it. That's not going to get you anywhere.
No.
But if you say, I can't do it, and also know that if you say that, the other person has the right to say, I don't feel like doing it either. So maybe tonight the dishes have to be left the way it is. It doesn't always work
It's
out.
that simple, you know. And it's about being creative in the way we communicate and being skillful and being intentional. You know, as you were just talking about, let's go for a walk and all of that. I remember the story. Now, this is how this story goes. Two men were walking back from the farm, and one man said, "If I get home and my food is not ready, I'm going to kill that woman." And the other one said, "Absolutely. If I get home too and my food is not ready, I'm going to kill her." And then the foolish man got home, one of the, men, the foolish one, got home and his food was not ready. And indeed, he killed the woman. Now, the one that started the conversation that said, "If I get home and my food is not ready, I'm killing that woman," this man charged all the way to his house to boast about how he has killed his wife because he got home and his dinner was not ready. Guess what he found when he got to this man's house? Indeed, dinner was not ready. But guess what? The man was in the kitchen pounding the pounded yam. There's something we call pounded yam in Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
Pounding the yam, helping the woman to get the food ready. Now, some morale in that story for us. And I like what you said about, find a skillful way to bring it in. So, for those of you who are here today, if you need a relationship alliance, because honestly, I never had one, I never did one. I know a lot of things today that I wish I knew 20 years, 15 years, 30 years ago. But that is why we are here having this conversation. We want people who, our audience, people who will be watching the replay, we want you to have great relationships. We want you to do what we didn't do. And that is why on this show we talk about learning, unlearning, and relearning. So go back to your relationships and do the needful, but do it skillfully, do it intentionally, and be productive about it. And I think we have some more comments here. Wisdom comes to play. Absolutely, wisdom comes into the whole equation. And someone else says boundaries is important sometimes. Absolutely, it is important. Um, Another important thing is not to burn bridges in our relationship, because life is all about relationship and very crucial. I think the right approach to issues is always very key rather than being offensive in our communication. Absolutely. We need to have a productive conversation. That's why he's a foolish man. Yes, a foolish man indeed. I just thought I'll throw that in. Just as you had that conversation, I remembered that story. And you'll be surprised that things like that. I mean, of course, no man is going to just kill their wife because of dinner. That's just, is it a fab we call it? But however, things like that still do happen today in different shapes and forms. So, but like you said, we shouldn't compare relationships. We should find productive ways to manage our own relationships. Now,
And Mary, also
yeah,
being curious, like curious as to why dinner wasn't ready. Maybe there's other
exactly,
things. I mean, be
exactly.
curious about it.
Be curious and be reasonable, because let's face it, the man and the woman goes to work. I mean, if we go back to the Stone Ages when the men went hunting and the women were at home to prepare the food and do all of that. I mean, if you're even angry, if you come back home and food wasn't ready, I could even, accommodate your anger. But today, we both go to work.
Mhm.
right? You leave the home to work, I leave the home to work. We both come back, we are both tired. It
Mm.
takes a reasonable partner to be sensitive to that. I mean, you'll be surprised how some partners still expect you to do everything as much as you're tired. And there are some partners out there who are just so amazing and very sensitive to the needs
Mm.
of their partners as well.
Yeah.
So kudos to those. Yes, more comments. Let's see here. I like to read our audience comments. Auntie Mary Lanian, thanks for all that you do and all your productive thoughts. My pleasure.
I know.
Be polite in communication. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so back to my question for you. Um, Nari, you are the director for CRR UK. You are an OSC practitioner. OSC stands for Organization and Relationship Systemic Coaching. Who can become an OSC practitioner now? Before you answer that question, however, I'm an agile coach, I'm an enterprise agile coach. And the reason you are actually on this show today is because I reached out to you because I wanted to come on the training. I
Mm.
wanted to come on the training because as an agile practitioner, this is so vital to my success in the way I go about working as an agile practitioner. It really does help because obviously within organizations we're talking about relationships, right? So I wanted to come on the course. That was why I reached out to you. However, I have delayed it until next year because I have just too much on my backlog, like we already agreed. I'll do it next year. So, from an agile coaching perspective, this is a great course to have to undergo. And I know so many agile coaches that have done it. But it's not just for agile coaches. So, who else? Who can become an OSC practitioner?
To say anybody who works with relationships, anybody who's interested in relationships, no matter what work you do, you learn 40 tools and 27 skills. I think, Mary, you and I spoke about the fact that you do. And the reason is because we need very many different ways to meet all the unique relationships that we meet. So if you're a team leader, if you're a CEO that runs a company, if you're anyone, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you work within health services, anybody who is working in relationship, because can I just tell you, it helps you in three ways. One is, first of all, you understand who you are in relationship and how you're different in different types of relationship. How can you still be conscious and intentional to have the right impact to support that relationship to develop? So there's the
Mm.
personal growth. The second one is you really get to empathize all the different perspectives that people hold, whether it's in an organization or within your family. I mean, as you just explained, in a relationship, you think you're the same as the other person, but you're definitely not. Just use the word joy, and you'll see how two people can define joy in such different ways. So it's understanding that. But the third and most important thing is how you support all relationships around you, either at work, at home, in your communities. You really do start focusing and exploring and teaching and supporting relationships to be conscious and intentional.
That is loaded. That is loaded. And anybody can become
Anybody.
an OSC practitioner.
Mm,
And now more than ever, organizations need people with these skills.
mm, mm, mm.
So it doesn't matter what your current professional track is, it doesn't matter what you're currently doing. You might want to check this out to see if this is something that really does interest you. Organizations are looking for people with these skills. So please do check it out. And by all means, um, this is their website. Check it out and link up with Nari on LinkedIn. She is on LinkedIn. She's a very busy woman, but she's there on LinkedIn. In fact, this whole week I sent you a few emails. I knew you had seen my emails, but of course you didn't respond. But I knew you had seen them. But of course I know how busy you are. So to have made time to be here with me on a Sunday when you should be chilling and recovering from the hectic week you've had, I totally and absolutely appreciate you, Nari. Thank you for adding value to me adding value to our audience. We really, really do appreciate you. I think we have more comments there. Know who you are in a relationship. It's so important. This is so important, yeah, this is so important, knowing who we are in a relationship. And I really can speak to this because there was something I was trying to say earlier on when and I had this conversation, funny enough, with a friend about 4 weeks ago. We only just reconnected after 35 years, something
Wow.
like that. Yeah. She's in America. We only just reconnected. And I have so many friends like that that I've only just reconnected with in the last 20 years. There are some friends I have here in England. We only see each other once in a while. Now, the men, and I'm saying this so that we women can be much more intentional about it. And the younger girls growing up into women should also be mindful of it and be intentional about it. Somehow, I could be right, I could be wrong, but if you agree with me, please put your comments out there. We women tend to disconnect when we get married,
Mm, mm,
whereas the men, for the most part, they are still together. They are still watching their footballs together. They are still going to the pubs together. They still keep their network. But we women, the marriage and family life almost consumes us.
mm,
Not until later in life, when our children are now in the university, they are all grown up. That is when we remember one Chinwe. That is when we remember one Annabelle. Oh, Annabelle, where the hell is she? I haven't seen her for 30 years now. I wonder
mm,
what she's up to these days. That happens a lot. And I
mm.
find that as a recurring decimal for a lot of women. If you agree with me, the women on the, in our audience here today, can you relate to what I'm saying? We tend to get consumed by our marriage. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Can we strike a better balance between our girlfriends and our family life and our professional life? Perhaps we can. I wish I did, but it's all good. Whatever happens, happens really in life. That is what I say. But I feel we really, as women, need to hold that sisterhood space because it can be very, very supportive.
Yeah.
And relationships get stronger when we nurture them. I mean, there are some relationships where you may not have seen each other for 30 years, but the moment you get on that telephone, it's like you saw each other. It's like yesterday was the last time you actually saw each other. I mean, and that is what I find with my childhood friends. So, which is not, it's not so bad that when we connect, it's like, it's a strong connection all over again. But I feel we can do more. I feel we can do more. So I think this is where we are going to. So okay, totally relate, Mary. Better balance going forward. Absolutely. Absolutely, better balance going forward. The men do a better job of it than we do. The men do a better job of it than we do. And Gbemi says that's right about women. We need to be intentional in striking a balance and keeping our healthy relationships rather than burying them after marriage. We do it a lot. We
Yeah.
do it. We do it a lot, and then we reconnect 30 years later. So let's learn from that, and let's teach our daughters to maintain their their sisterhood connection and all of that. Relationship gets stronger when we nurture them, absolutely, and that is what
Absolutely.
we have to nurture them, and we have to be
Do.
intentional about it. Great things don't just happen; they happen because we have paid attention to it and we have nurtured it. Um, Someone said, I don't think men do. You don't think men do what? Men keep in touch. I think they do better than we do anyway. You people meet at the pub, you meet at the beer parlor, you meet at the barber's shop. You form connections like that at the barber's shop. But we women, we go to the salon and everybody's just like that. So I think the men do a better job.
But Mary, that is a really interesting point, isn't it? How can
Yeah,
we be more conscious and intentional with each other so that when we are standing at the hairdresser shop or whatever, we
yeah,
have a conversation?
yeah.
You're right. We need to practice that.
We
I
need to
think
do
we
it
need to
more.
practice. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I did one day. This was in Nigeria, by the way. I went into a salon,
Yeah.
and of course, ladies everywhere. And I can't remember if it was morning or good afternoon. And I said, "Good morning, everyone." Nobody answered.
Mm.
I said, "Good morning, ladies." and then they, and that happens a lot. But the men will go to the barber shop, and there's a football going on. You think, it's the same mother that gave birth to all of them, as a matter of fact. So the men, when it comes to that social connection, they do it very quickly. We
Mm,
women, we don't tend to, unless we perhaps are already quite connected. But not all the time, but we can do better, is what I'm saying. We can do
exactly.
better. Go into that hairdressing salon, go into that nail salon, say hello to one another, talk about the weather. If someone has a little baby with them, hello, to the little girl, talk about their baby, give them some comments. Let's do more. And that's one of the things we're promoting on this platform, on learning and relearning, and, just lifting each other up as women, lifting humanity up, not just women,
Absolutely.
lifting up
Absolutely.
humanity.
Absolutely.
Nari, we're coming up to the hour.
Okay.
A few more awesome session. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Bemi, for your time being with
Thank
us. Our
you.
beautiful speaker has a resemblance with Celine Dion. That is true. Good observation. That is true, Joy. That is so
Thank
true.
you.
Engagement in a sport is different. Who is saying that? I would have loved to know who's saying this. Why is engagement in sport different? It's still a connection. It's still having fun with with the lads. And I just feel women can also do more of that. That's all we're saying. So a big, big, big thank you to our audience. And like I said, okay, it's Aju saying that, a friend of mine. Nari, we can't thank you enough for the time you have invested here with us on Sincerely Agile with Mary.
My
Great
pleasure.
tips you've given us here. And the one thing that I'm going to reiterate is the relationship alliance. And you've heard it from the expert. You must find a creative way to slot it in. Don't just go and say, we need to have a relationship alliance.
Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Start
Tomorrow
doing
is
it then.
Valentine Day. We need a relationship alliance. Thank you all so much for your time
Thank
here this
you.
evening, Nari. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
I'm
very much,
grateful.
Mary. Thank you for
Now,
having me.
enjoy the Valentine's Day tomorrow, everybody. Have fun. Go out, kiss, hug. Love you all. Bye bye.
Bye.